And it's hard too, because you gotta balance that from creator to promoter. Is you've got to be arrogant to sell it, but you've got to be humble to get any better. So there's a real tough balance there.
It's a fine line.
Now, in terms of technology being used, I actually think that we as self-publishers here, we're just scratching the surface. I think that a lot of what we do as independents is still rooted in following what the mainstream does, but we don't do it like the mainstream does, which is kind of interesting. Like, one of the odd things that I picked up on after my few years in the is the mainstream publishers, when they're at a convention, they don't have books on hand. They're not there to sell books. They're there to promote. That's it. So, we as independents, we don't approach things in that way. We think that we have to utilize that as a sales tool, and we don't. It's something where, what you would probably be far better suited at is to not sell your book, but to make a relationship. You offer a promotion of some sort that will, put you in the mind's eye of, the retailers, and you try to, I don't know, maybe build a distribution system, especially with the ways that we have now, Comic Monkey, Glam. You could, easily set up distribution where you acquire a fan, that fan goes back to their home base and says, hey, I found this book that I really like, I want you to order. So now you've actually made more sales than you ever could have, just sitting there at a convention trying to slave away and do that stuff, and it's all utilizing the technology that we have now. Like I said, I just don't think that we quite tapped into the full capacity of that, but I think we're starting to. We're starting to see all the kind of demand and things like that. So I'm very excited to be a part of it. I know that, Jeff Smith and a whole bunch of guys like that, they started a wave of things in the 90s. And for what we're about to do, I think we're going to, honestly, we could definitely eclipse, the mainstream, because we can produce so much more work than they seem to be able to on a constant basis, on a more artistic basis, and just, put a lot more stuff out there than we used to be able to. So that will be huge thing.
Kind of seems like I was almost inspiring. No, it does seem like the quality of work that's been put out, and which leads to my next question. I was going to ask Chad, since him and I are about the same age. We had a big run back in the 90s with Diane and Image, and a whole big push on the indie scene, supposedly. How does today's scene different from that? Well, the quality is infinitely better, but the attention's not as strong. I mean, man, in the early 90s, we could have killed, man. Because people were buying garbage back then. They were selling 50,000 copies. We would have killed 15 years ago. You've got a tenth of the audience, and whoever's left creating is having to create 3 times harder to compete. So, the result is the books are so much better, but you have so little audience to market to.
Right.
And that's what is so frustrating at the end of the day. Is, I know guys that used to go to Detroit cons and sell 40,000 copies of stuff. It was garbage. I mean, I see many comics that look better than that now.
Chad, you shouldn't hold all that back. It's not good for you. Hold all that in.
Through the truth, though.
It's the truth, man.
Yeah. The market has changed significantly after the big bust. And that's something that we have to deal with. A lot of those guys, they were floating high because people were like, oh, comics are collectibles. Well, now they realize that, no, they're not really anymore at all. And when you try to engineer them to be, that's when you fail. So, that was the thing that, before it was, they didn't produce that many or not that many survived, and that's what made them try to make it that way. Now you got a lot of cracks. So now we have to pick up the pieces, from that and try to figure out how better to keep the industry rolling on.
Do you think there's a comparison, though? Because I think it's like you guys should almost have another category, because if those are considered independent books and they're with a bigger corporation, what does that make you guys? It's like a hardcore, independent or something like that.
I would say that for me, in terms of what defines us as independence, is not the quality of our work, it's the quantity that we're allowed to produce. The general actual, number of books that we can print on any given basis is what defines us as independent. We're not we shouldn't be held to the criteria of producing 25,000 to 250,000 books. If we produce 1,000 of them, independent, there you go, because that's how difficult that really is financially, artistically, all kinds of things. So if we keep things on a quantity basis, that's what defines us. And we can definitely compete with everybody else and bring people back into the fold. That's the the beauty part of this. We don't have to produce all across the world to really bring people onto what we do.
So you see a valiant person, like, thanks a lot, you know,
Yeah.
your mess pal, I
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Well, sadly, something like Valiant was actually of a slightly higher quality than everything else that was out at the time, because they were kind of focusing on writing.
Right.
So, those were at least constructed a little better than a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah, it's just, I started thinking about that because that was when like a big independent movement for the longest time was buying Image. But now, I almost think that you're not seeing it because it's smaller groups working on their own instead of being associated with something.
Yeah, I mean, technically from a sales standpoint, everyone in comics is independent, because I mean, the highest selling Marvel book was 192,000 last month. That's
That
considered
hurts.
indie.
That hurts.
you know?
Right. So if given the opportunity, now I'll start this off with Dave. Given the opportunity right now, you had the chance, would you write mainstream right now?
Yeah. I would prefer to write maybe on the fringe of the mainstream. I mean, I think everybody has their stories that they want to write with all the, the iconic characters, but I mean, I don't know if I really have anything to add to that at this point. I would much prefer to work with characters that are, less used, less background, less baggage, where you could just kind of, you're the one that brings that character out into the mainstream, that sort of like with the Marvel Knights, what they did with that, even though that's very, very mainstream point of view, but how they took like Daredevil and brought him out and made, that's what I would prefer to do, where, you're taking something that's considered to be second string and making it mainstream. That would be incredible to have that kind of a, that's what I would prefer to do. But yeah, if they want to hand me the keys to the kingdom, sure, anytime.
What about you, Dustin? Would you do it right now?
Oh, yeah, I definitely.
I guess it's not a great question to ask because
Well,
who wouldn't run around the
It's a
neighborhood?
right,
Right,
but-
but I think every writer who does comic books has that kind of dream of pulling off the Alan Moore Swamp Thing and
Yeah.
pulling off the Frank Miller Daredevil and pulling off all these kind of legendary runs on these established characters. I think we all have that dream, but if the stuff gets so watered down by the editor, man, I can always go back to working at Walmart and selling no-cots. It doesn't matter to me. I'm good.
Now, with that, those specific runs that you mentioned, it seemed like, and I think this is something that we as independents tend to bring to the table, is because we're independent, we don't approach things in a long form. We tend to do it very limited, and we go for the goodness of the story immediately. And I think that those particular runs that you were talking about all have that point to them. They were done as though, if I've got 6 issues, that's it. These 6 issues are going to be remarkable. Oh, I got another 6? Okay, well, that's how I'll approach it. And I think, if anything, as independent creators, I think that's what we would definitely bring to the mainstream, is that sense of, that hunger where you don't know if you'll get next issue. So what we'll do is, we'll kill on this one, and, oh, you give us another one, well, then we'll kill on that one. We'll do it until we can't. And I think that'll be the one thing that we as indies would bring to the table, more so than those that are like, I'm just going to work in mainstream, just going to work in mainstream. They're looking at it as like, I want this long of a run. We're just like, I just want to get the story out. I got this one idea, boom, I mess with it, I let it grow, and that I think would be the overall thing for any person to have one mainstream.
It's almost like the analogy of the pre-law students before they take the bar exam. They're idealistic,
Right.
and then they get in the system and then they try to make a difference. The question is, can they?
Right.
You get in there, you hope you can make right for the better, but then if the system doesn't chew you up and spit you out,